50% of Republicans say they trust Trump best of all the candidates to handle these issues. Meanwhile, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, issued this coded warning to his party this morning.
It would be extremely helpful in holding the Senate to carry purple states. And all of you can draw your own conclusions about which candidates are most likely to carry purple states.
Well, Matt Schlapp, the former political director for George W. Bush. Michelle Bachmann is, of course, the former U.S. Congresswoman from Minnesota. And Steve King is a congressman from Iowa. Thank you all for joining us. What did you make of Mitch McConnell there, Congressman King, issuing kind of a warning? I don't think it was coded. He seemed to be warning his party members about not to nominate certain people. What's he up to?
Well, you know, I've said this for some time, that we have the establishment wing of the party. We all should be in the big Republican tent with the constitutional conservatives, but it's always the establishment that drives the wedge. That is Mitch McConnell getting out the wedge and the hammer and hammering that in, and it separates the party. We shouldn't have that, and I disagree with him.
Congresswoman Bachmann, why would anybody who wants to vote for somebody for president give a darn how it affects Mitch McConnell's majority or not? Wouldn't they want to think about, since they only get one vote, picking the person they want to be the nominee? Isn't that the way people usually vote, pick the one they like?
That's what they're going to do again in 2016, because right now what we're seeing is Islamic terrorism 24/7. That issue is bubbled up to the surface. Everyone is concerned. There isn't a day that goes by now that we aren't confronted with some new story about Islamic terrorism. And that's why you see the American voter, Chris, turning toward candidates that they feel will be the most effective in doing something and taking this issue on. They don't see that President Obama is effectively dealing with this issue. They see Hillary Clinton as effectively irrelevant to this debate. So they're looking for someone who will be strong on this issue.
If you'd been head of the school system in California and Los Angeles today, would you have closed the schools after getting that hoax call, that email?
If I would have closed the school, you have to go for
would
safety
you have done
first.
it?
And of course, that's what you have to. That's what you do. If you get something that you believe is a credible threat, then you need to close the schools. I was out in California about an hour away from the San Bernardino tragedy when it occurred, and when that happened, everything was under lockdown nearby. That you could hear police cars that were going to that area. At this point, there's very little information that you have to go on prior to the event, and you have to turn towards safety, especially when people don't have confidence that anything is happening to prevent terrorists from coming into the United States, much less stop them here in the country. That's the issue. That's why this issue is bubbled up to be #1, and it's why people are looking for a strong individual to occupy the Oval Office.
Well, former Governor Sarah Palin was asked about Trump's proposal to ban Muslim. Here's what she said.
The reaction, though, from so many right off the bat, knee-jerk reaction was typical of the media, not you necessarily, but the media. It was to jump all over it like it was such a negative. And I wanted to say, not speaking for Trump, but I wanted to say, let him finish the conversation. Let him finish what his thought about what he's talking about, a temporary ban, because we do have a very screwed up system that is resulting in the bad guys coming on over. It is common sense that we're in such tumultuous times, as caused by, in a lot of respects, not knowing who it is coming over our porous borders. We need to take a pause here and figure out what the system's going to be.
Let's look at this tsunami of support headed to Trump. It's not going to anybody else, not like it is to Trump. Up about 40% now.
That's right.
He's broken through all the thresholds, the glass ceilings, whatever you want to call them. We thought it was 20%, 30%, now 40%. What's changed? San Bernardino.
That's right.
And Paris. Even though it's a foreign city, I get the feeling that got to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's about characteristics. It's not necessarily about policies. We can talk about whether Muslims and what our policy is. The fact is that Republican voters see Trump as strong, inflexible, and going to defend us. And they're not actually looking for his policy papers. They see characteristics they like.
What about the other candidates? They don't see it now?
Well, no, I think what you've seen is a dramatic shift in these polls from Ben Carson to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a similar candidate to Donald Trump with a little different story. That's why I think tonight is very interesting.
No, let's not overdo the Cruz thing. He's at 15.
Yeah,
Trump's
but that's
at 38.
Okay, but you're a smart guy. It's a national poll. Yeah. Don't you care more about what's happening in Iowa?
No, because I don't think. Well, let me go to Steve King. Congressman King, do you think Iowa? You know, they used to say, "As goes Vermont, so goes the nation." Do you think Iowa is a leading indicator? It has its particular interest, would you say?
Iowa makes, of course, the first recommendation to the rest of the country. But here's what I think is a difference between the polls.
Huckabee, Santorum, Robertson, your pattern is not exactly a winning pattern.
No, Chris. If we'd nominated them, we don't know that they would have been elected or not. And anybody that has won the Iowa straw poll in caucus and been a Republican has won the presidency since Reagan. So there's a completely another side to that coin. But the Iowa polls that are there have Cruz ahead.
Wait,
at least
the Iowa caucus is... Well, you're a little too fast for me. You're a smart guy, but you just went too fast for me and our viewers.
Oh, my. Okay, I'll mark that one down.
You said the Iowa straw poll. Let's talk about the caucuses coming up February 1st. They have not been a leading indicator of who's going to win the Republican nomination for president. They have not been.
But Chris, if we think about what this is, Santorum won by a handful of votes. Romney won the nomination. Romney didn't win the presidency. We can't speculate that Santorum would have lost the presidency if the rest of the country would have followed Iowa's recommendation with Santorum. You could say the same thing about...
Betting? Okay. Are you betting on either Santorum or Huckabee, your previous Iowa winners in this year's election?
Of course not. But here's what we need to be thinking about. Iowa polls say Cruz. National polls say Trump. National polls are reflecting the national media that's flooded with all Trump all the time. You have to adjust for that and recognize that Iowa and New Hampshire will be independent, and South Carolina will listen to that recommendation. And I think that's the thread that we need to watch throughout all of this.
Let me ask you all. I want to start with Congressman Bachmann. Why do you think Hannity and Levin and Rush Limbaugh seem to be so pro-Cruz? What's that about?
Well, I think you have to look at the issue sets that people are concerned about, and the main issue set that's driving all of this is the issue of America's open borders and the unmitigated immigration. Most people don't realize that well over 3 million people a year are flooding into the United States, whether it's legal or illegal immigration or whether it's through the refugee program. And
why aren't those guys for Trump?
Well, remember, Donald Trump is the person who put the issue of immigration square in the middle of the table, an issue that no one was talking about. Why aren't those radio guys for him?
Why are the radio voices who tend to represent the most conservative voices in the country? They're not running for office. They don't need 51%. They need about 5 or 10% to be hugely successful in the air. Why are they all for Cruz and not for Trump? Trump's way ahead in the polls.
Well, none of the three that you mentioned, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, or Rush Limbaugh, none of them have endorsed any candidate yet. But they have a pulse on where the electorate is at. Remember, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton run as far left as left can get. That's what Barack Obama continued to do from 08 to 12. Hillary is following that up. She's more left on immigration than Barack Obama. That's not where the country is. Hillary Clinton is occupying a very unfavorable space.
Okay, everybody has to take their opportunities. Right. I know why people come on television. So I'm all for it, Congresswoman. I want to ask you, Matt, why the differential? 38% of the Republican Party says they like Trump. All of the right-wing radio says they're for Cruz. Why?
I think the difference is going on here is that Cruz is consistent on his conservative philosophy A to Z. Donald Trump is more of a vessel for a message. Ted Cruz is a guy who they agree with on all the policies.
I think Cruz has systematically hugged the hard right rail, and it's worked for him very well on every issue.
We say conservative.
Okay, hard conservative. We'll agree on that. Hard conservative. Anyway, thank you, Matt Schlapp. Thank you, former Congressman Michelle Bachmann. You're always welcome. U.S. Congressman Steve King.